been a long week without real baseball, but tonight the Mariners return to the field for a 3-game series at home with the Tigers. The thoughts on that, 3 notable promotions in the minors, and the possibility of trading for Rays second baseman Brandon Lowe. Coming up, Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Friday, July 14th, 2023. This is Trident Gonzalez and Colby Patnett for the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you're part of the crew and rock with us every single day, let us know in the comments below. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. You can now get a free 7-day trial to check out the show. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description of this episode. And on this episode, we'll be talking about the Mariners' upcoming 3-game series with the Tigers and our latest trade today. But first, we actually have some minor league news. 3 Mariners prospects getting promoted, which comes as no surprise. After the draft, Mariners are adding 22 players to their organization. There's some opportunity here for guys to get bumped out of the lower levels and then to into the next step of their professional baseball playing careers. So Cole Young and Gabriel Gonzalez, they're both heading to High A Everett after great starts to the year in Low A. And Alberto Rodriguez is heading to Double A finally after like a season and 3 quarters of time in High A.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah,
it's been a while. So Colby, how or which one of these call-ups are you most intrigued by?
Probably Rodriguez to Double A, just because he had tremendous success this year so far. He's kind of resurrected his baseball prospect status. I think coming into the year, we both kind of barely had him in our top 30, and we're prepared to move him out after a really bad 2022 season. But he came out and he's absolutely crushed it. And the bat looks legitimate. It looks like he could be, top 20 profile even after the Mariners have infused even more talent into their system. But because he's repeating the level, there's a little asterisk next to his stats. So moving up to Double A, we'll see if he can continue to put up similar numbers to see if he can continue to, just look the part and look like a major league hitter. And if he can do that the rest of this year, there's a non-zero chance that he's going to go into spring training with an outside shot to make the big league roster. At the very least, put himself squarely in like prospect status instead of just org depth, which is what it looked like he might have been heading into this year. So that one's the most intriguing to me. That's the one where I think tracking the numbers and all that stuff actually makes the most sense. If you're in the Pacific Northwest, Cole Young and Gonzalez are certainly more fun because they're going to be more accessible to you and you can go see them. But if they struggle a little bit or whatever, it doesn't really do anything to their prospect status. They're still teenagers, they're having a really good year down in Modesto, so they go up and they crush it. Cool. There's still a really good shot that they start next year back at Everett. And 2024 is still kind of a pipe dream for either of them to make their debuts. But if Rodriguez goes up and he crushes it, 2024 is very much on the table. Rodriguez is a really intriguing fit for T-Mobile Park and what the Mariners are trying to do with their lineup. So I'm probably going to be tracking Rodriguez the most. But, obviously it's a lot more fun when a guy goes from Modesto to Everett because it's just easier to watch them because they're in some of your backyards, not mine. But I lost my chance to see those guys when the Yakima Bears moved to Oregon.
Yeah. I'm with you on the Rodriguez call. He's still 22 years old. Lefty bat who's hitting for more power than he ever has. The strikeouts are down this year as well, 21.4%, 9.6% walk rate as well, 306, 393, 580 slash line in High A, 154 WRC plus. Obviously, he's repeating the level, but still, those are good developments that you're seeing. And again, at his age, he's more than on track right now. He's not like too old for high A, and that's
he's not 24.
Yeah,
taking advantage of 19-year-old pitchers.
Yeah. So yeah, this is really interesting for him. So, look, the last time he got a call up, it was a rough time for him. He went from low A to high A. He struggled in those 7 games that he played at the end of 2021, came back in 2022. He was fine. He was like league average though, and that's not what you want to see, right?
No.
You don't want to see league average production at that level from, a guy that you considered it for a time to be a top 20 prospect in your system.
Yeah.
So.
And he's bat only, really.
Right.
That's where he's going to get most of his value from. So he has to be better than league average.
Yeah, you can put him in a corner. He'll be fine there, but he's not.
Won't kill you, but
he's not above average or anything like that. He's average at best with the glove.
Yeah, the bat has to compensate for the glove, kind of like Teoscar.
Yeah.
Where he has to be that much better of a hitter because the defense will drag his value down a little bit.
Of course, Rodriguez acquired in the Taiwan Walker deal with the Toronto Blue Jays a couple years back. Cole Young, of course, the first round draft pick of the Mariners last year. Gabriel Gonzalez, a recent international signing. So good news for all 3 of these guys. Congratulations to them on their promotions. Looking forward to seeing what they do. And you guys can keep track of them. This is not an ad, but if you have an MLB TV subscription, you can now watch minor league games as part of your subscription at no additional cost. So if you want to watch these guys, you have access to do so if you have MLB TV. You can also keep track of their numbers, etc. on Fangraphs. I know someone in the comments asked us where we're able to see minor league numbers and all that. So Fangraphs, Baseball Reference, you can find all the minor leaguers numbers on those websites.
MILB.com.
Even that, though, that's very limited. I would recommend going to Fangraphs.
Fangraphs will give you the ratios and stuff like that. The walk rates, the strikeout, like the stuff that really matters.
Yeah.
Also, I would just say, follow Mariners Minors on Twitter. They post a lot of videos and they post box scores of pretty much every single game. So it's a really good follow and it's worth your time. So lots of ways to track these guys.
Yeah, that's at MILB Mariners on Twitter. So give them a follow. They're great. They post clips from the games. They post box scores, like Colby said. They live tweet all the games. So I don't know how they're able to do that, especially when all these games are going on at once. But good for them. Good for them. All right. We're going to be talking about the Mariners' upcoming series with the Tigers, which starts tonight. The Mariners are back, baby. Really excited. It's been a long 4 days without them, so glad that they're back, and glad we're going to be watching some baseball tonight at T-Mobile Park. First, though, a reminder: this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit, and that's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head on over to eBay Motors. With the eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. So the Mariners are back tonight. You can catch all the action on the Mariners' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. So Colby, Luis Castillo taking the bump for the Mariners tonight. I got George Kirby tomorrow. We'll see how they order their rotation the rest of the way. They haven't officially announced that, but I would assume Logan Gilbert is going to be starting Sunday's game. So what are your thoughts heading into the series?
Yeah. It exists pretty much. Sure. They're playing another professional team who's
pretty bad. They're pretty bad. Let's just say it.
I mean, you do have to face Eduardo Rodriguez. I think this is his first start coming off the IL.
Yeah.
So, we'll see how long Rodriguez can stick it out. The offense in Detroit is awful. They can pitch a little bit, but overall, it's not a very good team. We've already seen them once. It's a series the Mariners should and really need to win. A sweep would be great, obviously, but again, my stance in general is like you can't count on sweeps ever. So, these are professionals. Somebody's, Castillo could go out there and give up 7 runs in 4 innings and you lose 7-4. It doesn't mean, you can't have a good series if you win the next 2. So, yeah, I think you need to win the series. You just want to keep on playing good ball. You went into the break winning 7 of 9. You won 3 series in a row. You didn't sweep anybody, and that's totally fine. So you have a chance here. You get Detroit, Minnesota, and then I think Toronto, then Minnesota again. I think is how it shakes out. You have a shot here to, stack some series wins against mediocre AL Central teams. And then you have the big Blue Jay series sandwiched in there. So yeah, tonight, hopefully Castillo has his good control. He's able to stay out of the middle of the plate, not give up any or too many home runs, especially to this lineup. So yeah, hopefully you go out tonight, you win. A win on game 1 always makes the weekend easier. It makes game 2 less urgent. You can kind of take a few more risk with your bullpen and stuff like that. And so, tonight would be big, but Rodriguez is a tough customer. We know the Mariners struggles against lefties. Well, pretty much anybody, not for the last month, but overall it hasn't been great. So yeah, I hope they score some runs early. I hope that they can get Rodriguez's pitch count up, get to that Tigers bullpen, and hopefully Castillo does what he should to a pretty mediocre lineup. It's Riley Green and a whole lot of so hopefully the Mariners can take care of business and just find a way to win two of 3, and if they can get the sweep, fantastic. But you got to win the series. You got to take at least 2 of 3.
Yeah, nothing groundbreaking to really say about this series. It's it's the usual. Pitch well, get timely hits. You should be good to go.
Play your solid defense.
Yeah, stay healthy. I would like to see, a couple of the Mariners hitters, get out to a hot start coming out of the break at least, see if Kelenic can get hot again, see if Gino can stay hot, Teo, etc. Yeah.
Sure. We talked about Kelenic yesterday on our Patreon show, which
we
got a lot of new free trials, which I assume is mostly you guys. So I hope you enjoyed yesterday's show. But yeah, we kind of dove in on, what was it? Was it yesterday's show or was it more Tuesday's show?
About Kelenic?
Yeah. It was yesterday. Right?
It was yesterday. Yeah.
So yeah, if you guys want to go listen to that for free, go ahead. But basically, Ty and I are a little confused as to how Kelenic has been so bad this month, because we both were watching him and we're like, hey, it looks like he's turning it around, but the numbers don't back it up really at all. So we'll see. I think we got to the bottom of it, or at least, a good portion of it. So we'll see if he can make that adjustment. We did see him in the Houston series kind of eliminate the leg kick. So it does look like he's trying a few different things right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kelenic being, he doesn't even have to be April Kelenic. If Kelenic is just like a 110 WRC plus bat the rest of the way, it's a huge weight off of your shoulders, particularly because he's still handling lefties just fine. So
and we saw some promising numbers in the batted ball data. He's hitting the ball hard. He's barreling
when he hits the ball
right now.
When he hits the ball, he's an elite player. But
like I told you yesterday, though, even though that he's been really, numbers wise, dreadful since April, he's at least been able to contribute still here and there. There's been, the occasional hustle double. There's the big stolen base. There's a big walk. So
he needed it a little more often, though.
Yeah, definitely.
And
definitely.
Kelenic isn't. You don't want to put too much pressure on the guy because he is still just 22 and 23, 22, whatever. He's a young guy, right? And this year has been a major step forward for him. So you don't want to, ask too much from him, but if he could just be a little bit better, just take a little bit of the pressure off of Julio, a little bit of the pressure off of JP, and Gino and Teo, the guys who are performing right now. It, lengthens the lineup and it's one less thing you have to worry about at the deadline. So Kelenic to me is look, the key to the second half in general is Julio Rodriguez. Always has been, always will be. He's your best player. He has to play better. If Kelenic could even just, be average for the rest of the year, just an average, league average bat, it makes that lineup so much longer, so much deeper. And then we'll see what you get from Mike Ford, see if he can continue to stay hot, and see if Colton Wong and Jose Caballero can continue to just kind of keep second base afloat, for a while, and then we'll see what happens with Jerry. But yeah, you'd like to see those guys get off to hot starts. But tonight against the lefty, I'd like to see Kelenic get a couple knocks tonight and just kind of get the ball rolling a little bit.
For sure. Well, let's talk about someone else who could potentially lengthen this Mariners lineup around the trade deadline. That's Brandon Lowe, second baseman of the Tampa Bay Rays. We're going to be talking about him for our trade today in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Bird Dogs. I hate shopping for summer clothes. I just want to be comfortable, no matter if I'm at the ballpark, back at home, recording an episode of Locked On M's. Oftentimes, though, I find myself settling for clothes that feel cheap, tight, and restricting. And I know it's gross, but it makes me sweat in all the wrong places. I know. Thankfully, Bird Dogs has me, and therefore you and Colby, covered. Their wide selection of insanely comfortable shorts, joggers, sweatpants, polos, and more have me ready for any occasion the summer throws my way. I mean, who doesn't love stretchy fabric and built-in underwear? It's time to look good, feel good, and play good this summer. Go to birddogs.com/lockedonmlb for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. Yeah, just like this one. Look at it. It's keeping me hydrated while doing the show. That's birddogs.com/lockedonmlb for a free Yeti-style tumbler. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Again, you can catch the Mariners and the Tigers tonight on the Mariners hometown broadcast, SiriusXM via the SXM app. So Colby, let's talk about Brandon Lowe. I feel like the Mariners are going to make a trade of some kind with the Rays before this deadline is over and done with. Brandon Lowe is a guy that we've talked about a lot over the last year and a half, 2 years. So what do you think? Do you think Lowe is available from a Rays team that is currently the best in the American League? And what do you think it would cost?
Yeah, I don't know if he's available or not, but I don't think anybody on the Rays is ever truly unavailable, if that makes sense.
Good point.
Yeah, it's a team that, kind of, they're not afraid to trade an arbitrage, right? They're looking to sell something of value they have for something of value they don't have, and they'll make trades like that often. They'll also just make sideways trades where they add a prospect that they like a little bit better than the one they give up. So the Rays are always open to anything. What makes Lowe pretty interesting is that the team's been pretty good, essentially without him this year. And they do have other options to play second base that have worked out just fine. They have Taylor Walls, for example, and then they have down in the minors, they have Bruhan, and they have these other guys who can play this position. And really they haven't really skipped a beat. Lowe hasn't been very good this year, and he wasn't all that great last year. And he has back issues, or at least he has this year. So there are a lot of, interesting factors here that make Lowe probably more available than a guy with his contract and his ceiling would be for a team like the Rays, who do have a tight budget. So is he available? I think he probably is. Is he available at a price that makes sense for Seattle, considering his back issues and his poor performance over the last couple of years? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know, but I do know Tampa Bay needs bullpen help. I do know the Mariners do have some excess bullpen arms. Would it cost Paul Sewald? Maybe. Would it cost Justin Topa and Gabe Spire? Maybe. Could the Rays just trade him for prospects because they don't see a fit for him on this club anymore?
And non-40 man prospects, not guys that won't have to be added to the 40 man this winter, because that's always a big deal with them. I think Sewald's a little too rich for me on Lowe, because I feel like you're essentially paying, like if you're giving up Sewald, you're more or less paying for the guy that he was like 2 years ago, rather than the guy that he's been the last 2 years, which is often hurt and roughly a league average bat with poor defense. He's not a good second baseman. I think he was fourth in outs above average 2 years ago. I think he's I think he's a little bit better this year, but last year he was also really low. He hasn't been good defensively for most of his career. So
not a train wreck though.
But still, you're essentially buying the bat here.
Sure, but we're not talking about Ty France at second base.
No. And not even, Colton Wong
he's
last
better
year.
than Colton Wong. Yeah.
Yeah, he's better than Colton Wong. It's probably not a significant upgrade though, is what I'm trying to get at here. Yeah. He's striking out a lot more than he has in his career this year, 31.6% of the time. He's also walking 12.6% of the time, though, so that balances out. But he's slashing 209, 307, 401. He's missed a good chunk of this year. He only played 65 games last year. He's only played over 100 games once in his entire career, and that was his career year in 2021. So I don't know. For me, I think Seawald's a little bit too rich. I know the Rays need bullpen help. If they're willing, to do Lowe for a couple of mid, leverage relievers, like a Topa and Spire or Topa and Festa or whatever, I'm willing to entertain that. But for Seawald, especially if I'm competing this year, still, like the Mariners have an endless supply of mid leverage relievers, but a high leverage reliever like Seawald is a little bit trickier to replace. So I don't know if I'm into that idea.
Yeah. Again, Lowe is so interesting because, 2 years ago he had 39 home runs as a second baseman. And by the way, he does have plenty of experience playing both third base and left field as well. So just a little bit of versatility. It's not great versatility, but it's there. You can give some guys some days off, but again, there are back issues here that you have to consider. There's an injury history here you have to consider. There is, below average defense, I think is pretty safe to say, at second base. They have to consider here. And there is a contract, which, while it's not, prohibitive to really any team in baseball, it's still not nothing. Like there's a little bit on Lowe's contract that makes him a semi-expensive risk, to put it nicely. So, Lowe's if he was healthy, Lowe or Lowe?
Lowe. It's Lowe.
I was Nathaniel Lowe, Brandon Lowe,
Josh Lowe. Yeah.
Sure. Right.
Brandon Lowe. Yeah.
There's one Lowe and everyone else is Lowe.
I look at just real quick. I look at Brandon Lowe as a very similar opportunity to Eugenio Suarez. Suarez obviously had a longer track record before, the Mariners traded for him than Lowe does. But so I see that as like, well, again, this is dependent on how the Rays are valuing him, but I see him as a really nice buy low candidate who's been hurt lately, hasn't played up to his potential as of late, but has some really good years. Just a couple of, he's only a couple of years removed from some really good years. So,
his base salary this year is $8.75 million. So you'd owe him about $3 million if you acquired him for the rest of this year. And then, his base salary this year is 5.2, so you'd only owe him about $2 million. Next year it's 8.75, and then there are 2 club options for 25 and 26. They are worth $10.5 and $11.5 million. And there's only a $1 million buyout. So again, these are not prohibitive numbers. For Lowe to be worth $8.75 million, he has to be 1.5 wins above replacement level. That's something he's going to do if he plays 100 games. So again, this isn't prohibitive. It's not like the Rays have to get this guy off of their roster because he's just eating away at it. They don't. At the end of the day, they owe him about $11 million guaranteed. So they don't have to trade him for the money.
Yeah.
Is it a nice bonus that they could do something with that money if they do trade him? Yeah, it might be. So when you look at the Rays, though, their biggest weakness by far is pitching. They need bullpen help pretty badly. Are they willing to trade a second baseman who, again, injury issues, performance issues, minor contract issues? Are they willing to trade that for just, because essentially, basically what we're asking is, are they willing to take the Willy Adames package?
Yeah.
Which in the Mariners sense is probably, honestly, Topa and Hancock, Topa and Baroa, because the Adames trade was Fireeisen and Rasmussen, and Rasmussen was not Drew Rasmussen at that point. He was just, a bullpen guy more than likely, but he might be able to start.
He was Drew Rasmussen, not Drew Rasmussen.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, it's kind of Emerson Hancock like, where it's like, he probably would thrive as a bullpen, but maybe there's a tweak that you can make, and all of a sudden he's a really good starter. So I think for me, that's probably Topa and Hancock. Are you willing to do that for Brandon Lowe? maybe, probably.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm totally fine with that. But
Mhm.
if they're talking Seawald, then I'm well, again, it's dependent on where I'm at. You know, am I
Mhm.
still thinking that I'm competing? Am I adding Brandon Lowe to, you know, not just for the next couple years potentially, but for this year, you know, really? Like if I'm
Yeah,
trying to up the floor and my ceiling this year, then I'm not trading Seawald. Um,
that's right. You just trade Ty France for him.
right, right. Of course, I knew you were gonna get that in here at some point.
But
Uh
no, it's interesting. By the way, just quick side note here: if you're thinking the Rays won't trade with the Mariners because they're both contenders,
they literally did that
Diego
before.
Castillo.
They did that 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Rays are willing to trade anybody for the right price, except for like Wander Franco and McClanahan. They're not trading those guys, but like, yeah, they'll trade anybody for the right price if they think that they get the better end of the deal. And obviously,
Right.
you know, they would be thinking that if they were trading Lau. So, you know, remember there were prospects involved in that trade too. It wasn't a straight up thing. So, yeah, the Rays can
Yeah.
get creative, Mariners can get creative, and this might be one of those cases where a 3-team deal actually ends up making a ton of sense
Yeah.
for everybody. So we'll see.
I told you this in the DMs. The Rays should trade for Ohtani. Now, like, I don't want them
They're not
to
going
because
to.
I want the Angels to, you know,
Right.
to not get anything for Ohtani.
Get the
But
draft pick and still screw that up. Yeah.
yeah. But I would, you know, like just looking at the Rays roster, like, yeah, they're probably not going to do it, especially with the money involved, because they still have to pay Ohtani like $15 million for the rest of the year if they acquired him, and that's
Yep.
a lot to the Tampa Bay Rays. So, but like, just dude, if they added Ohtani to that roster, the Braves are really good. I really want
Just
to
fast
Braves
forward to the
World-
Rays versus Braves World Series.
yeah.
But
Watch Mariners bounce the Rays in the divisional series.
heck yeah.
That's right.
Mariners own Ohtani,
That's true.
confirmed.
That is true.
Which is another good reason for him to sign here.
Right.
He won't have to face the Mariners. I say that knowing that Ohtani has hit like 480-foot home runs against them. This is why they should have kept. This is why they should have kept Justice Sheffield in the organization.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
One and only job is to get Ohtani out.
That's what I was going to say. We get to the division series, and by God, that's Justice Sheffield's music.
Sliders away, baby. You guys don't get the joke if you're new here. Shohei Ohtani 1 for 11 in his career against Sheffield with 6 strikeouts. Justice Sheffield owns Shohei Ohtani. Go figure. By the way, Justice, I hope you're feeling better.
Did he land with someone?
No, he stepped away from baseball for a little bit. I think he's taking a mental health kind of break here. So yeah,
and he'll come back just in time for the Rays Mariners series in the ALDS.
There's just some random dude in the Mariners bullpen. I don't get, like, nobody even knows who. Like, he's wearing a mask. I can't. And then, oh my God, it's Justice Sheffield. Bases loaded, 2 outs coming into face.
The lights turn out in T-Mobile Park. Here comes Justice. It's like the Undertaker.
No, but yeah, Lau is interesting to me. I'm still very much interested. I know the downfalls of Brandon Lowe, and they're aplenty, but it might be for those reasons that you're able to get him at a cost that is very much reasonable for Seattle, and it could be the solution. Again, could be. This is where you have to trust the Mariners. You have to trust their medical staff. You have to trust their scouts, their analysts. You have to trust them on this. But Lau could be their answer to second base for the next few years if they believe, A, he can stay healthy, and B, they can kind of get him back to where he was a few years ago. So
yeah,
trust the process on this one, but yeah, Lau's interesting.
Yeah, maybe he's not capable of doing what he did in 2021 again, but I still think there's a lot of upside there in Brandon Lowe. So
can he hit 230, 330, 450 and be fringe average defensively?
Yeah,
because that's a massive upgrade over what you've gotten at second base really since Cano left. So I'm interested. I'm in, but obviously cost is going to dictate a lot here, but
very much so.
Yeah, I honestly, this feels like a 3-team deal. But we'll see. It's certainly not something the Mariners or the Rays are going to shy away from.
Right. All right. Well, that's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Trident Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, that's DANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at Locked On Mariners. That's one word, Locked On Mariners. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Again, you can catch the Mariners face the Tigers on the Mariners' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day and a beautiful baseball weekend, and we'll see you next time. Peace.